Hey guys, so I'm really excited because I have a really special guest on today. He's TJ Kirk. You know his channel is now named TJ Kirk. He's got over 1 million subscribers. I'm sure you guys know who he is. How's it going, TJ?
Pretty good. Thanks for having me on here.
Yeah, of course, man. Thank you for coming on. So first, I just kind of want to start out talking about Bernie Sanders because I know that you were sort of what you could call possibly like an avid Bernie Sanders supporter, if you will. And I know that you used to make a lot of videos on that. I just kind of wanted your thoughts on the primary, Bernie Sanders, and just sort of politics around there.
Well, when Obama was running for president, there was obviously this big atmosphere of hope. The banter was change. We're going to change things.
Yeah.
And then when he won, it was the first sign that things weren't right was the cabinet appointments. It was It's very popular now, and Trump did it too, to run on this idea of I'm not from Washington. I'm going to change what Washington's about. I'm going to change the system. And then they take office and they just put lobbyists all throughout their cabinet, and they put insiders all throughout their cabinet. And it's like, okay, well, this is obviously not going right.
Yeah.
So on one hand, I feel like, okay, Bernie Sanders, he had kind of a similar vibe around him.
Right.
Wasn't quite the super celebrity that Obama was, but there was a lot more of a history of authenticity to back it up with Bernie. And so I was a big Bernie Sanders supporter. I was a little bit more cautious because of what I'd been through with Obama. And, I as far as the primary stuff goes, when we've had Elizabeth Warren come out and say that it's absolutely true that the primaries were meddled with. We've seen documents leaked, possibly by the Russians, possibly by whoever. It doesn't even really matter. We've seen documents that are internal DNC documents that shows that they tampered with the election. All you got to do is look at the system they created, and it's pretty obvious that the idea of super delegates is there to, we got to curtail the will of the people a little bit to push whatever the establishment candidate is. With Obama, they couldn't do that because he was just so huge. With Bernie, it was a little closer. So, when it's closer, they can cheat. And I think they did cheat. I don't think that they, there's different levels of cheating. I don't think they outright rigged it in the sense of they were, tampering with voting machines and stuff. But they certainly did everything that they could to stack the system against him. But, who knows? We don't know what the alternate reality where Bernie won the election is like. Maybe it sucks.
I don't know. I don't think so. But
who knows?
I guess so. But, Hillary ended up going on to win. And, I was just curious your thoughts on Hillary and not necessarily Hillary, but Trump. What are your thoughts on the Trump presidency?
I don't have any great affinity for Trump. I think that I don't really hate Trump for the reasons that are pushed in the media.
Right, but so I guess this is an interesting question to come to, because I think that you were kind of fence riding. You said yourself that you were kind of fence riding on Trump for a while.
Yeah.
But I was wondering if at this point you really hated him, because if you supported Bernie Sanders, like a massive amount of stuff that Trump has done, wouldn't you be in opposition to? The tax bill and
Yeah, exactly. It's policy that I hate Trump on more than anything. The tax bill is a gift to the rich. It's a temporary tax cut for the middle class and a permanent tax cut for the richest members of society. It is typical Republican bullshit. It's not this, the reason that I was on the fence about Trump in the first place was because I thought, well, maybe he really is this rogue, this outsider, this guy who's not going to play by their rules. I might not agree with him politically, but maybe our country needs somebody like that. But once again, it was a deception. This time it was just perpetrated on the right wing instead of the left. It was, hey, here's a guy who's going to shake things up and change things. And I mean, he has.
But did you actually believe it at all, though?
No, not really. I mean, I didn't believe it. I just thought maybe, because I don't know. Until he'd never governed anything before. I mean, he actually is a lot of parallels to Obama. Obama had very little government experience. Trump had no government experience. Both of them were promising to change the system, to shake things up.
Yeah, no doubt.
And I was very skeptical. I wasn't skeptical of Obama at all because he was telling me what I wanted to hear. Trump, I was way more skeptical of. But at the same time, I didn't know. I'd never seen the man govern. I'd never seen what kind of policy decisions he would actually implement or how his leadership style would actually play out. So I guess it's fair to say that I was reserving judgment. But at this point, I think the jury's in. And, if you are someone who purports to be any level of liberal, there's no way you could possibly support this guy. He's one of the most illiberal presidents, maybe not ever, but in modern history.
Okay, so what you're saying is you really dislike him very strongly, but you just sort of are not a fan of the way that a lot of people go after him.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think that, stuff like the Stormy Daniels stuff, to a lesser extent, the Russia stuff, I mean, I can see those as being legitimate criticisms, but to focus on those to the exclusion of his terrible economic policies and just the way that he's just a friend to Wall. I mean, like, the problem is that we're relying on corporate media to provide us with this news, and the narrative that they want to push is not the anti-corporate narrative because they're corporations.
Yeah.
But my biggest criticism of Trump is what a friend he is to Wall Street, what a friend he is to his rich cocksucker friends.
Yeah.
I mean, he's such a pal. And there's other things I find problematic, for lack of a better word, about Trump. But to me, that's the main thrust of why I find myself really at odds with him. I think that stuff like the wall is kind of ludicrous. I think that the way that he's so easily manipulated by foreign powers, whether you believe the Russian collusion stuff or not. I mean, it's just there's so many examples of, like, Trump talking tough on China, and then he talks to the Chinese prime minister or president or wherever they have in fucking China, and the next thing you know, he's sucking the guy's dick on the national stage. It's like, well, I thought this was our big trade enemies, and now all of a sudden they're great because you had one conversation where the guy, flattered you. And just seeing, I mean, I don't know. I mean, my friend Paul thinks he might be senile. And, I don't know. He's not fun for me. He's not fun for me. But I mean, I don't know. I remember the Bush years pretty well, and I remember what a ridiculous fuck he was. And it's very tempting to be like, oh man, he's even worse than Bush. But Bush did some pretty fucking crazy shit.
Right.
I don't really feel like we need to rank them, but I mean, I feel like they're both just typical Republicans. This idea of Trump as this rogue, this outsider, is a total fiction. He's doing all the things that Republicans do. He's maintaining, first of all, this foreign policy of hawkishness that, Hillary Clinton also championed. But he's doing that. He's giving big tax cuts to his buddies on Wall Street. He's taking credit for economic gains that he had nothing to fucking do with. There's a lot of problems.
Okay, so here's a question I think a lot of people are wondering about and want to ask you. You just stated that you're really not a fan of Trump, and I think a lot of people are wondering about why you kind of choose not to focus as much about him when it comes to, criticisms and videos and such like that. And I was just curious because, I would have thought that with a lot of the stuff that he's been doing recently, whether it be, the tax bill or destroying the Iran deal and all this other stuff that's going on, I was just kind of curious, and I think a lot of other people are wondering also why you kind of don't criticize him more on your channel.
I think part of it is because there's just a fatiguing amount of Trump criticism that's being pushed on people all day, every day. And maybe I think that my criticisms would be more substantive, but
So wouldn't that be beneficial then?
I mean, it could be. And I'm not ruling out criticizing Trump, and I have criticized him, but I've not made it a primary focus. And I think part of it is, I feel the fatigue too. I don't like talking about him. And
don't you think it's important though? Because I have seen your video about the fence riding.
It is important, but here's the thing too, though, is I don't know, when I have such a nihilistic, misanthropic perspective on American politics. I feel like we live in this party that's really controlled by one country that's really controlled by one party. Okay. And that there's, I don't view the Democrats, when people call Democrats liberals, like I chuckle at that, because the vast majority of them are not liberals. They're center right.
So you have a lot of problem with what we would call corporate Democrats, right? Like Hillary, for example.
Right, exactly. And I'm not saying that there's not good progressive Democratic voices, because clearly there are, but
there's only a little few.
The nature of it seems like we're just always being pushed to the right because we got to compete with Republicans in states where people maybe are not super liberal or progressive. And so you have to build this coalition, and coalitions exist on compromise. And a lot of the compromises have really eliminated a particular point of view from American politics. But let's be real here. Obama got elected on progressive rhetoric. Yeah. In a fair system, I think Bernie Sanders would have got elected on progressive rhetoric. So there's obviously a lot of progressives out there in this country, but you look at the Democratic Party, it's not representing them. You look at the Republican Party, it's certainly not representing them. So I kind of feel like almost like it's pointless on some level. It's obviously not completely pointless to criticize Trump. I don't want to come across like that, but it's kind of, I feel like defeated in a way, because I know that the ping pong ball is just going to bounce back and forth between Republican and Democrat, and the Democrats I don't view as being so substantively different from the Republicans that, oh, wow, I really want the ball to be on their side of the court again.
Okay. So basically you don't really have, okay, so what it sounds like to me is basically the kind of idea that just resisting is not enough for you to kind of be energized to kind of criticize him, and you're just kind of lacking anything to really go out and fight for? Is that what it's like?
Well, yeah. I mean, because once again, I mean, we saw what the system did to Bernie Sanders. We saw what the system did with Barack Obama. I don't know if he entered as a genuine progressive and was just grinded into sort of the establishment guy that we saw before us, or if he was always that and was just lying. I don't know that. Mm-hmm. But I do know that, these progressive values, these progressive ideas, they win elections, and then when the election is won, it's business as usual, and we see it time and time and time again. And so it almost feels like, why am I invested in this? Why am I invested in this system that's just garbage in, garbage out?
Yeah. Okay, I see. So I wanted to kind of shift here to talking about social justice warriors, or SJWs as they're called. And I wanted to kind of talk about this because I feel like there's been a very big what I would call like sort of shift or change in your channel. I feel like it really went from being a lot of, but I would say before Bernie Sanders and a while ago, I feel like years ago, I feel like you really did focus a lot on politics and specifically politics. Mm-hmm. But I feel like as of somewhat recently, in the past, like I would say like maybe a year or two, I feel like you've made a lot of like anti-SJW videos, and I feel like it's sort of become focused on that. And I was just curious as to why the majority of videos went from being about politics to just being sort of anti-SJW, whether it be responses to BuzzFeed or, whatever other kind of stuff like that.
I mean, one of the things you have to understand about my point of view on SJWs is I'm not just looking at SJWs as here's something that I think is stupid that's being said, therefore I want to correct it, because a lot of stupid stuff happens in this country. A lot of stupid things are said from a lot of different viewpoints. And and what you find stupid is largely subjective. There's people watching this, saying, "Oh, what an idiot who's saying, saying this stuff." But to me, I mean, I just feel like, and I feel like I'm part of it too. Honestly, like I think the first big anti-SJW video on YouTube ever. And maybe I'm wrong about this. Maybe this is my own ego talking, but I believe that the first anti-SJW video to get big on YouTube was a video I made in 2011 called "It's Only Sexist When Men Do It." It was a response to a TV show, I forget the name of, where Sharon Osbourne, Ozzy Osbourne's wife, was one of the hosts. Mm-hmm. And it was like kind of The View ripoff.
Interesting.
And some woman somewhere had chopped her husband's penis off and stuffed it in a garbage disposal. And,
wow.
The whole panel was laughing about it and just thought it was the greatest thing. And no. And I was just like, this is messed up. And a lot of people misinterpret that video, because what I said in the video was, if a dude had chopped off his wife's tits and thrown them in the garbage disposal, no one would be laughing. Anyone who was laughing would be looked at as a reprehensible fucking creep.
Yeah. Yes.
And so I said, enough with this double standard. If either it's okay to joke about both, or it's not okay to joke about either. And I mean, when I say okay, I don't mean in terms of actual censorship. I just mean in terms of public reaction.
Okay.
So I feel like that video kind of started a lot of this anti-SJW stuff. Now, I don't know if it's I'd had influences. Part of what I was saying there was influenced by me checking out men's rights subreddits. Part of that was influenced by a stand-up routine that Bill Maher did in 2003, I think, on his HBO special. I think it was called... I can't remember the name of the special, but he did this rant on feminism towards the end of the special. And so that kind of got my gears turning, and I kind of expanded on what he did. I didn't steal his bit, but I did a bit that expanded on some of the concepts that he did. And I did it on YouTube, and it was a big hit. It was on the front page of Reddit. All kinds of people were talking about it. It was a huge discussion piece. And I feel like after that, a lot of people say, hey, there's a commercial viability to this anti-SJW content. And that attracted a lot of people. And over the course of the last few years, I've seen it blow up in ways that I never would have imagined. I saw, even like a lot of the rhetoric that people use to support Trump was... all about he's the perfect foil for these fucking SJWs. And it became, very much SJW became sort of a catch-all term for all liberals. And so then it became, it's liberals doing this. The distinction between you're a liberal and you're an SJW vanished. And I'm a liberal and I'm anti-SJW. And I don't want to say I started it, but I broke new ground for it for sure. And now I've watched it, something that I kind of created on some level or participated in the early stages, at least, kind of turn on me to where now it's being used by right-wing demagogues who have no subtlety in their criticism. The nature of my criticism of SJWs has always been that, a lot of what you're doing is devaluing certain terms and phrases. I'll give you an example. There's lots of YouTube channels on YouTube right now that are, openly, I guess I don't want to use the word racist because I don't want to piss certain people off, but they're certainly racially antagonistic in a very open way that you didn't see just a few years ago.
So on the kind of state of, I guess what I would say, like the state of what I would call the anti-SJW community, because I would say it's almost like, I would personally call it a cesspool, because it's almost like there's all of these different channels making all of these different videos, constantly saying the same thing over and over again. And you're kind of saying you almost pioneered it to an extent. I was curious as to what your thoughts are on that community. Do you consider yourself a part of it? Did you ever consider yourself a part of it? Do you have any regrets?
I don't regret, I mean, if I open the doors for something, or I help to open the doors for something, because I certainly don't want to act like this is all me and I created this. I don't want anyone to come away with that impression of me as being super egomaniacal in that way. But, I did help with it. And as far as I know, one of the first big hit videos on YouTube was that one that did the anti-SJW thing, even though we weren't even really using the term at that time. But it was certainly the
What year was this? When was this
2011.
Oh, way back then.
Yes.
Okay, and, so what I'm talking about is kind of more like in the past, like 2-3 years. I would say.
Yeah, but I'm saying that you can. There's a causal chain that leads from a lot of these channels that exist now back to where I made that video, and then of course you can take the causal chain back further to the things that inspired me to do it, and I'm sure that those people had their own inspirations and so on and so forth. So you could follow a causal chain back. I'm just saying that a link in that chain is me making that video and me focusing on that kind of content for a while. But I mean, the thing about SJWs is I feel like a lot of what they've done has enabled the right wing to...
Yeah. Would you say you took part in that at all? Because I feel like your channel had a lot of anti-SJW videos.
Well, yeah. I mean, obviously, I made it my bread and butter for a long time, and I still use it. But I think it's important to, first of all, criticize SJWs from a liberal perspective to show people that this is not, look, it's not just conservatives who find this ridiculous. Just because you identify with not liking this stuff is not in and of itself what liberalism is about. It's a distraction.
Right. So like I would point to kind of the example of, like, I'm sure you know Kyle Kalinske, of how
a friend of mine.
He's someone who's an anti-SJW, but he's a very strong liberal. But
and I love the fact that he does that. I mean, he does it from even a more concretely progressive position than I do.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's definitely good for people to see. I like that, people can go to his channel. They can see that he is clearly a very left-wing guy, but also extremely critical of not all social justice as a concept, but the concept of these social justice warriors he's critical of. And I think it's important for people to see that because, there's a narrative that's being pushed by the right wing that SJWs and liberals are one and the same, and it just isn't so. I think that a lot of the behaviors that you now see exhibited in the right wing are things that I initially criticized about SJWs. It's about censoring opposition, deplatforming opposition. A lot of these tactics that I criticize SJWs for, these people on the right now use, all while claiming to be champions of freedom of speech. And as far as I can tell, there's not a whole lot of champions of freedom of speech on either side right now.
That's true. So what I was just kind of curious about is, I wouldn't consider Kyle anti-SJW YouTuber, or definitely not part of the anti-SJW community, but he's definitely sort of concretely laid down his stance on that. But he doesn't really just constantly make videos about it. I was kind of curious as to why you chose to kind of make that, as you said, your bread and butter, instead of sort of sticking with what you did in the past, which is more sort of political videos, or, whether it be religion videos or... I
started off doing atheist content.
Yeah.
And to me, all of my content has a running theme throughout it. Whether I'm taking on Christianity, Islam, and other religious traditions like I did in the early part of my career, or whether I'm taking on right-wing politics like I did a few years back, or whether I'm taking on SJWs like I have been for the last few years, or, whatever. The running theme is always me standing up against what I perceive to be stupid. And it's, like I said, it's a very subjective thing what someone considers to be stupid. Usually it just means things I don't agree with. But yeah, I mean, that's been the running theme of my channel. It's always been about going after specific groups of people, not because of anything other than the strange ideologies that they attach themselves to. And always the approach I typically take is I want to deconstruct the ideology that they've built up. I'm not really, I might throw in a personal insult or something here and there, but the driving force behind the content that I've always made has been, let's take a look at what people think, what they believe, what prepackaged system of thought they've fallen into, and let's, dismantle it, and let's see how it works, and let's see why it doesn't work. Honestly, I just don't know where to go from where I'm at now. I kind of feel like the anti-SJW stuff is a bit old, is a bit played out.
So you've gotten tired of it at this point as well?
Every once in a while I'll find something. Like I found these really preposterous lists of 100 things white people need to do to, make people of color more comfortable, and 100 things that men need to do to make women more comfortable, and I found
Doesn't that just feel too easy? Like when you make videos about that, like, isn't that just so dumb that you just feel like why am I even made, like, this is like, honestly, it's a joke.
Maybe it is, but I take people very seriously. I might be a misanthrope, but I do have a baseline respect for people and what they believe. And I hate to see people who are, someone who wrote that list really believes what it says. Look, in fairness, both of the lists contain some stuff I agreed with, but the vast majority of it was really condescending, unreasonable, contradictory, it is kind of an easy target, but how many people are really
going slam dunk?
How many people are really going to go give it its due, though? How many people are really going to go and take it apart piece by piece and really lay out the groundwork for why it's so preposterous, why it's so wrong? Because it's easy to have that visceral gut reaction of, oh man, that's just ugh. But I think there is some value in actually elucidating, here's the full range of how this can be criticized, at least the full range of how I can criticize this from my worldview and my vantage point.
Oh, okay. So talking about anti-SJWs, I wanted to sort of jump.
Hold on. To get more to the heart of your question, though.
Go ahead. Sure.
I just don't know where to go from here, because I feel like, okay, I've said what I need to say on religion. I've said what I need to say on politics. I've said what I need to say on SJWs and all of this culture of, safe spaces and sensitivity and whatever else. But I just don't know where I go from here. I don't know what the next theme I tackle will be.
So when it comes to the politics thing, though, politics is, I would say, a lot different than the sort of religion thing, as well as the anti-SJW thing, because politics is a forever moving thing, and ideas are sort of changing in a way, and also things are happening differently. So right. I think that might be where you could go. But so you're sort of in a spot right now where you don't really know where to go from here.
That's right. And the thing about politics, it's like I don't know if you're a fan of the Fallout games, but the line at the beginning, war never changes. I feel like the same way about politics. It changes.
You're tired of it.
It changes, but it really doesn't change.
Okay.
It's really just a matter. I think of it as a big puppet show. I don't know if you've ever heard the Bill Hicks routine about, the people looking at the two puppets, and it's like, oh, I think the puppet to the left is more to my liking. Well, I feel the puppet to the right more shares my views. Oh, well, it's the same guy holding up both puppets. Go fucking figure.
That makes sense.
I don't know. I just feel like this country is so bought, sold, paid for, owned by the wealthy. The voice of the people, we continuously see it ignored, regardless of which party is in power.
But you don't want to try to fight back, to try to kind of overtake that?
I just don't. The population just doesn't seem willing to do it. The people of this country, it really, no one person can do it. Everyone has to do it. It has to be the people of this country seeing the scam that's been perpetrated against them and saying, okay, we're not going to put up with this anymore. But they still think, oh, the solution is Trump. Oh, the solution is Bernie. Oh, the solution is the solution is not put a guy that can parrot our rhetoric in the White House. The solution is that you have to really do a fucking bottom up tearing down of a lot of institutions in this country and rebuilding them in a different way. And people are scared of that. People are scared of actual change. They know they want change, but they don't actually want the pain of going through a change, especially one as sudden and dramatic as that. So I kind of feel like maybe it's hopeless. Maybe I just don't have the feeling of, I mean, I don't know. I just don't feel like there's a path to victory there, but you know, whatever. I mean, I've engaged in hopeless fights before. Who knows? I'll just follow my passions. I mean, I haven't figured out exactly what my next passion project is going to be, but we'll see.
Okay, well, speaking of one of your projects, you're like writing a book that is trying basically debunking Jordan Peterson. Now, I was curious your thoughts on Jordan Peterson, and just sort of, talking about the book that you're writing.
Well, yeah, I'm writing a book called The Order of Chaos, An Antidote to Meaning. It's not really just a refutation of Jordan Peterson, because I think that it's easy to do that, but it's also difficult to make that interesting. I think that the only way you can really take on Jordan Peterson is to say, okay, well, here's his point of view on how the world works. Here's his philosophy of life. So, it's not mine. So let me tell you my philosophy of life, and we'll occasionally compare and contrast it, but for the most part, the book is more about elucidating where my head is at, why I think the way I do. And hopefully if people find certain of my insights useful, they'll take them and adopt them. And if people don't, I mean, I've already had people come to me and say, really love chapter 1, hated chapter 2, really love chapter 2, hated chapter 1. So, and that's exactly the kind of reaction I want, because in the introduction, I make it clear that, take what you want from this. If you don't like something I say, discard it, throw it in the fucking garbage bin. Because I think that's how people should read any book. And I think the problem with what's happening with Jordan Peterson right now is that his attitude is not, here's some suggestions, take them or leave them. His attitude is, I'm the savior. I am your father. I am going to instill you with this great responsibility. And he's set himself up in the position of a demagogue. He's got followers who think he's their father. He's if you go to one of Jordan Peterson's videos, the comment sections are just gushing with over the top, disgusting praise. That's it's not like, wow, I really admire what this guy's doing. That would be fine. You find comments like, here stands a man, a great man, a strong man. It's like, oh my this big purple cesspool of weighty language, and they almost start writing like old style with these and thous and things, and it's like, wow.
So what do you make of his rise
around there? I think that I think he's correct when he identifies the reason why he's rising. I mean, because if you ask him, he'll say, well, it's because I preach a message of responsibility, and you don't hear that.
Do you think that's what it is?
Oh yeah, I think it really is that. What he's not saying is that the responsibility and purpose that he provides is not objective. It's not objectively the right path forward. He basically thrives on a lack of ambiguity, a total ambiguity rather.
Right.
The demagogues like to keep things vague. They like to have people insert their own ideas into what's being said. That's why Make America Great Again by Trump was such a great, campaign slogan, because, okay, make America great again. So when was it great before? When is this era we're supposed to be revisiting? That's never clarified. Yeah. That's never explained.
True.
Because he wants people to put their own idyllic version of whatever part of the past they most venerate and say, yeah, that's what we need to get back to, this, and this. He doesn't clarify what that is. Jordan Peterson's the same way. I mean, if you ask him a direct question, it's just a slippery maze of bullshit. Oftentimes, and the reason for that is because he doesn't want to come down to definitive. I mean, like he's slimy to fucking try to pin down. Even the way he writes, there's a lot of suggestions of what he means, but it's always open enough for interpretation that people can put their own values into it to some extent. But yeah, people are looking for purpose in this age because look, we live in a more nihilistic time than ever. People are super skeptical of everyone other than the person who's feeding them what they want to hear. That's a big problem. We live in an age of total confirmation bias because, there's so many different sources of information. There's so many different points of view being presented, especially, when you have like these mass communications platforms like we have now. So people don't know what to think anymore. So people just end up thinking whatever they want. They end up listening to the voice who's repeating what they already believe back to them in a more articulate way than they could ever say it. And that's what Jordan Peterson does. He gives voice to a lot of people. And the way he gives them that voice is by being so vague, but just specific enough about a few things that they can kind of see enough of themselves in that to be like, oh yeah, this is what we need. We need to return to tradition. We need to return to order. We need to, defeat. Once again, he relies very heavily on this defeat the SJW scourge thing.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of different. I have to admire Jordan Peterson on a sheer crowd control level. I would say the same.
What
about
Trump. His monetary gain?
Oh yeah, and a tremendous monetary gain. But I mean, everyone who does what Jordan Peterson does has some ambition of making money. So you can't fault him for being good at it.
Yeah, that's true. But I was wondering what your thoughts on his whole religion shtick is, because obviously the whole beginning of your channel and for the longest time until recently, your channel name was about religion. So I was curious what your thoughts are on that.
I've watched a lot of his stuff. I've read his most recent book. As far as I can tell, he does not believe in a literal God. He does identify as a Christian. He's been asked point blank, does he believe in God or not? His answers are legendarily evasive. And the reason he doesn't want to give that answer is it's clear in his book. In his book, he talks at one point about heaven, okay? But he never talks about heaven in terms of this is a place we're all going to go after we die. He talks about heaven as a place that it's up to us as human beings to create for ourselves. When he talks about God, he never talks about him specifically as a person unless he's referencing a myth. I think that what Jordan Peterson is on religion is he's someone who sees a social value to Christianity. He's someone who pines for the stabilizing influence of Christianity, but he doesn't actually believe the doctrine on the supernatural portion of it anyway. He thinks these are good. It's a good moral framework to exist within. It's a good social
there's a lot of
framework to
ambiguity
exist
there
within.
as well.
Yeah, and like I said, he likes to keep it vague because he doesn't want to come out and tell his God-fearing followers that he definitively does believe in God. He doesn't want to tell his atheist followers that he definitively doesn't believe in God. He wants to promote Christianity as a social institution more than he wants to promote it as a religion. Okay.
So I wanted to, because this is something interesting. You had back, I can't remember what the year was, but it was a long time ago. Steven Crowder, you had done a video about his whole union, where he got like punched in the union thing.
It's great.
So I was curious as to what your assessment of his whole punch thing was, and then just kind of talk about Steven Crowder in a general sense and what your thoughts are on him.
Pardon me. I thought I could get away with taking a drag out of some very legal tobacco, but
no worries.
The problem that I had with Steven, I mean, I'd made several videos against him by the time I did the Union video because I didn't agree with his rhetoric. I thought he was very dishonest in the way he presented information a lot of the times.
Right.
But, you know, whatever. That's just left-wing, right-wing bullshit. The thing about the Union thing was, though, I looked at the video that he released, and then I looked at an unedited version of the video to see what he cut from it.
Yeah.
And you can't see who started this fight, but what you do see is you hear a commotion, a little scuffle.
Right.
There's a guy who looks to be about 50-something years old laying face down on the ground facing away from Steven Crowder. He gets up and he attacks Steven Crowder. And Steven Crowder's story is, this crazy Union guy just attacked me. Well, why was he on the ground? Well, I fought him off. Okay.
Yeah.
So here's the problem. If you fought him off, why is he on his stomach? Why is he facing away from you?
Right.
The only way that it makes sense for him to be in that position is if he was pushed from behind.
Right.
That's when, if a person falls forward, they were attacked from behind, right?
Right.
Unless Steven Crowder attacked him with such ferocity that he just flipped. You know, Steven just laid him out with this haymaker that spun the guy around like in a movie. And so I said, Steven Crowder is full of shit. He pushed this guy from behind because he knew this dude would then get up and confront him, and he wanted footage of him being confronted by a Union guy.
Right.
Why else would he have cut that portion of the tape if not to conceal that fact?
That's true.
So I hear, because at this time, me and Steven Crowder are still on the same channel, network. We're on the same network.
Yeah.
And the guy, we were on this branch of the network called Polypop. And I had already been told explicitly that Steven Crowder would never collaborate with me on anything in any way or be on any show that I was on.
Okay.
So he was not happy with me in general. He did not like me. He probably still does not like me.
So wait, so you're saying he told the network that you're on, the specific part of it, that I don't want a collaborator to be in any way, shape, or form associated with?
That was his position.
Wow.
So that was before I made the video.
Oh, that was before?
That was before. So after I made the video, I get a call from the guy that represents both of us, that talks to both of us, and he tells me, you know, just so you know, Steven Crowder is talking about suing you for that video you made.
No way. Oh, yeah, I think you talked about this on your Joe Rogan appearance, right? A little bit?
Maybe. I might have. I don't remember.
Okay.
But, yeah, he said he said he was going to sue me. That, you know, there was a strong possibility that there was going to be a lawsuit. And about, I don't even remember how much time after that, a few months, maybe a year, I hear that there's been a court case where Steven Crowder was bringing, I don't remember exactly the circumstances of the case. You'd have to look it up. But nearest my recollection, he was, for some reason, the tape was being scrutinized by a judge. That's what's important.
Okay.
Because maybe Steven Crowder was suing someone else who'd misrepresented it, or maybe he was doing something. I don't know what he was doing with it. But the judge looked at the tape and actually came to the same conclusions about it that I did, and said that it did not show him being assaulted without provocation.
Is there any documentation of this?
Oh, yeah. I mean,
it's easily accessible online?
Probably. I mean, they're court records. It should be accessible. But yeah, the judge. I mean, there was news articles about it at the time. I'm pretty sure.
Oh.
That it's not like a breaking thing or anything. This is just something that happened that everyone fucking forgot about. But a judge ruled that his tape didn't show what he said it did, and after that, I obviously wasn't sued because a court had already ruled in my favor, basically, without him ever
before it even
getting
went to an actual. Okay, so you were never even sued. It was just a judge reviewed the tape that he brought up, and they said no, we don't side with you.
Yeah, they reviewed that. The judge reviewed the tape for some completely unrelated case, unrelated to me in any way, shape, or form. But yeah, that's why he never did bring the suit. I'm pretty sure. I mean, either that or he just thought that's dumb. Why would I? So the judge. Do
you think the judge maybe was because it was like a review? He was reviewing it maybe because of like something to do with the whole union spat the fight that he got into it with.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so that's
maybe I could find the thing.
Now I had also heard you say you can resume with what you see if you find it. But you'd also said on your Joe Rogan.
Okay, what it was it was actually here's the story. This was actually the trial, not the trial, but this was the judge deciding not to charge the guy that attacked Steven Crowder in the union video. That's why the judge reviewed the tape. The judge reviewed the tape to see if there was sufficient evidence against this guy. And this happened, and the judge ruled no. From what I see on the tape, there's not evidence that he attacked without provocation. So that's what happened.
So in that process, then basically, the whole idea of suing you was not going to work, because if he reviewed it already and said that there's clearly some sort of provocation here, then he couldn't win a case against you.
Or at least. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Or at least there wasn't enough evidence that there was an attack without provocation. So I don't know if the judge fully came around to my way of thinking about the tape, but he looked at it and said, this tape doesn't show what Steven Crowder purports that it shows.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. Now, you had also said that you had offered to debate him, and he denied. Is that true?
He didn't deny. He just never responded in any level.
Oh, so you challenged him to debates, but he just never acknowledged you.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, this was back in 2009.
2012? Oh,
2009, 2010. I mean, we've known each other for a long time. I mean, we've never met each other or known each other, but we've known of each other for a long time.
And you said that is Lee Dore Steven Crowder's actual brother?
No, Lee Doran's not his brother, but he did have a brother that did respond to me on Twitter. I don't remember what he said.
Okay.
It was not nice. I remember that much.
Okay.
Okay. No, I think that Steven Crowder just had a policy of not engaging with me on any level, which is fair. I definitely have had that policy with certain people before. So if he feels like I'm just that frustrating for him to the point where he doesn't even want to deal with my existence, then whatever. That's fine with me.
How was his channel on YouTube doing in comparison to yours at the time back in 2009?
Oh, he was always a big hit on YouTube. I mean, even before conservatives really, started making serious headway in that space. Even before that, he was always a big success. And I mean, he's a very talented guy, so he deserves it. He's a good presenter. He's always been able to make things look very professional. He's got a strong commitment to making content. I mean, there's a lot of things I would actually say I admire about him from just a work ethic perspective. But obviously we don't agree on politics, but he's always been big. He had some really big hit videos long before this red wave.
Okay, when would you say the red wave occurred?
Oh, I don't know. Probably around Trump's campaign.
Trump's campaign?
Yeah, they all kind of congregated around that. I'd say that it began then. I'd say that there was rumblings of it before then, but I think it really took off when they got their dream candidate. Okay,
so I wanted to touch a little bit on Jimmy Dore. I want to know what your thoughts on Jimmy Dore are, because is there something going on there?
Not as far as I know. There was some old stuff where we had Milo Yiannopoulos on our show, and I didn't it became a news story later on because of comments that Milo made on our show. And Jimmy Dore, when reporting on it, seemed very dismissive of what we did on our show, and we took it as a professional discourtesy. But that's whatever you say things that are maybe dismissive, especially when you're trying to do a show with levity and jokes and stuff. And I don't want to fucking shit on Jimmy Dore till my dying day because he said something that I thought was a little dismissive once. I like his show. I don't watch a whole hell of a lot of it, but I watch it every now and then when I see an interesting story. And I think he does the stories justice and usually elucidates them well.
So you have no problems with him then? Because I know that a lot of people think that there's something going on there.
No, I mean, there was a little bit of drama back in the day, but, it's nothing that it's definitely not anything in my mind worth holding on to. I don't like the way that he spit on Alex Jones. I think it's just kind of...
What'd you think of that whole thing in general where that whole meltdown happened?
I think that... I think Cenk was, in the right to get upset. I think a lot of people, they have strong feelings about Cenk Uygur one way or the other, and I think maybe it clouds their judgment sometimes. I mean, let's just stop thinking about it as this is Cenk Uygur and this is Alex Jones, and you have emotional different relationships of both of them. The fact is, if you're doing any job, especially a job that you have to do in front of other people, and especially when it's someone from within your own industry that's doing it, to be a performer, it's like as big an asshole as if like you're in a play and you keep interrupting the other person's lines in the play. I mean, it's just not. It just seems very rude to me what Alex did.
So you're sort of sympathetic towards Cenk because this is not something that I've really heard from, I guess, almost anybody.
Yeah, I just think it's very rude to interrupt someone else's show when they're trying to entertain people and talk to people. I think I don't have a hatred of Alex Jones on any level. I just think it was a rude move on his part. I understand he's a provocateur. He's got to push buttons. I think that, it's funny what he did. I'm not going to deny the humor, but I also think it makes sense for Cenk to be upset. I understand why both guys did what they did is what I'm saying. But, in the whole mix or mess, Jimmy Dore flinging spit, I think is just you don't spit on people. If you're gonna fight, then fight. Don't spit. I think that's just I don't know. I don't like it.
So I was curious because you did I had seen a video of yours that you did about Ben Shapiro. It was about like the whole PragerU Hollywood video that he made, right?
Right.
And so I was curious if you could sort of expand on your thoughts on Ben Shapiro, maybe some sort of analysis of, because he's really big now with his fan base on YouTube. Basically, if any video is made with any disagreements with Ben Shapiro, essentially it just gets destroyed with dislikes and comments of people. And I was kind of curious what your thoughts overall are on Ben Shapiro and sort of the kind of YouTube environment with Ben Shapiro.
I'm not a fan of Ben Shapiro's speaking style, so I don't really watch a whole hell of a lot of what he does. I know that he's been in tiffs with some of the InfoWars guys because he's...
Yeah, you saw that, right?
Yeah. And I've seen a few things of Ben Shapiro's, and I haven't reacted well to them. I've been very upset by the kind of things that he says. And I wish I hadn't have said the word upset, because then people are like, oh, it's an emotional reaction, feelings before facts, feelings before. I mean that it's upsetting because it's so intellectually dishonest oftentimes. I think that there was his work is riddled with emotional appeals and logical fallacies, and one thing you can give him is he does have a very high production value. He does put a lot of work into that. He's works very hard to be presentable. I think that he's obviously looking at the big picture by not cozying up to Trump. I think that it's going to make him look very good in the future when people see that he was never aboard the Trump train, because these people are going to be as disillusioned with Trump as, a lot of Democrats were with Obama.
Yeah.
So not Alex Jones, but
Ben Shapiro.
Ben Shapiro is going to look like a very prescient voice, I think, on that stuff.
I was curious what you thought about this whole Ben Shapiro spat, because it was almost like he got swallowed up by a bunch of people who are much further right than him, whether it be Alex Jones, Candace Owens, Mark Dice, et cetera, et cetera. I was curious what your analysis of that whole situation was.
I didn't pay a whole hell of a lot of attention to it, honestly. It's something I kind of got wind of, but didn't really delve into. I usually don't care much about the interpersonal drama elements of politics. I think that our focus on that is, it oftentimes obfuscates the issues of actual importance, which to me are policy issues. So if I'm going to object to Ben Shapiro, it's going to be in terms of policy. If he has certain social issues that he and I differ on, then there might be a more emotional argument about that. But it's not only going to be emotional on my side, it's going to be emotional on his as well. I think people need to admit that this idea that their social beliefs are backed up by fact probably needs to go away, or at least take a back seat, because these are emotional issues. I think people need to realize that emotion is going to be a factor in those discussions. You can't, human beings on neither side are ignoring their feelings. They want to dismiss the feelings of their opponents, but they want to enshrine their own feelings. So I think that, America in this political discussion does need a lot more empathy.
Okay. I was curious a little bit. You brought up the social issues thing. What do you make of his comments about transgender people, saying that like transgenderism is a mental illness and things like that? I was curious on your take on that.
I think it kind of depends on what he means by it. I don't know. I've not heard his entire rhetoric on it. I mean, gender dysphoria is a mental illness. The known treatment for that illness is transitioning gender. That is the prescribed method. So not only do they want to say it's a mental illness, but they want to also be against the cure.
Yeah.
Are they medical experts? I don't think they are. So maybe they should shut the fuck up.
Yeah. Okay. So just kind of last thing here. Here's something interesting. You said Kyle Quincy's your friend, and he did a debate on the Drunken Peasants one that you were moderating between him and Razor Fist. Right. I know that you're a moderator, so I guess you're not supposed to really give your opinion necessarily, but I don't think anyone's really going to object to it. I was curious as to what your opinion was.
I feel like obviously people are going to have their own decisions about, this person was more close to my ideology, so I think this or that. But in terms of just debate tactics and presentation and so many other things across the board, I think that Razor Fist came unprepared to the debate compared to the preparation that Kyle had done. Kyle took it very seriously. Razor Fist took it very cavalierly, and I think that the public reaction to the debate speaks for itself. I can't tell you how many comments I read that said, I agree with Razor Fist on more of these issues, but I still think he lost. That to me is one of those powerful things in the world, because people love being agreed with. So when you feel disappointed in how your own ideas were defended by the person who's supposed to be out there espousing them, that's a problem. But I don't think it's a case of Razor Fist not having the talent to be able to do that debate. I just don't think he knew how seriously Kyle was taking it. I think he underestimated his opponent. And I think that he won't make that mistake again.
And so, so you're saying you think Kyle performed better, essentially?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think that's pretty obvious.
Okay.
I don't think it's controversial to say that. I will say this. Razor Fist recently made a video where he was talking about the North Korea issue.
Yeah.
And he was showcasing how the South Korean President Moon, I believe, was giving a lot of credit to Donald Trump for bringing North Korea and Kim Jong-un to the table, and said that even these fire and fury comments that everyone was so aghast with might have actually done something to bring Kim Jong-un to the table. Maybe he was actually scared into coming to that table by that kind of rhetoric.
Yeah, but I just seen literally a couple hours ago Kim Jong-un saying that he deserves no credit and that it was complete BS for Trump to claim that he actually did anything and that he actually. And I honestly I don't mean
sure, but I mean that's Kim Jong-un's though. I mean, you know. Yeah. I mean, I think that you know, President Moon probably a little more trustworthy, but the point is not that. The point is that that did happen. You know, the president did say that. You know, we can speculate about the reasons. That's fine. But Razorfist kind of brought it up as saying, hey, you know, Kyle really disagreed with me on this issue on that debate, but now it looks like my position to a greater extent has been vindicated. And I kind of brought it to Kyle to say, you know, maybe you want to have some kind of response to that. And Kyle said he was not interested in responding to it. I hope he doesn't mind me bringing it up here, but I actually do think it'd be worth responding to, not because, you know, of Razor Fist, not because of that, but just because, you know, I think we should talk about the North Korea thing because, you know, you know, Trump is getting credit for it in a lot of circles. He's getting credit for it from the president of South Korea. Now, that might just be a professional diplomatic thing. That's
what I think it is, personally.
Yeah, and that could very well be the case, but I think that it needs to be discussed. So even if Kyle doesn't bring up the Razor Fist issue, I'd really like to see Kyle's opinion on that. I don't know, maybe he's already done a video on it. Yeah, I think that that should definitely be something that liberals attack. I mean, this is the problem I have with a lot of politics now. Mm-hmm. People are obsessed with attacking each other's weaknesses. I never attack a person's weaknesses. At least I don't make it the focus of my attack. You always attack their strengths. Uh-huh. You have to tear down the things that people really respect about them if you want to have this big decisive victory. And if you're trying to tear down Trump, you don't go after he's a piece of shit and he did this and that. Go after the stuff that people like about him. Mm-hmm. Taint that. Show them how that's bullshit, because that's how you actually change their minds. Take away that glow. You know, and attack substance, attack policy. Talk about ideas. I don't know what the aversion is in this country to talking about ideas. I feel like, you know, even on tonight's show, it's been a lot of like, what do you think of Steven Crowder? What do you think of Ben Shapiro? What do you think of this guy? What do you think of that guy? And it's like, I know that, you know, it's like an attempt to, let's get more drama going there. But no one's attacking the ideas of these people. No one's actually deconstructing their fucking arguments. And that's a problem. That's my problem. It's like the level of our discourse has just gone to total shit, where everything's fucking Jerry Springer now.
I would say that's true to a big extent, but I also feel like, because I personally made a lot of videos going after specific ideas on people like Ben Shapiro, but I do get your point, though, for sure. I get your point.
I'm not saying that you're doing that.
Yeah, I understand.
I'm just saying that, you know,
it's become commercialized,
and you know, you can't resist the allure of it, because it's so commercialized. It's how you make the fucking money. It's what people really want to hear, and my objection is not to the content creators or any of these people who are just trying to give the people what they want. My objection is to what the people want. Mm-hmm. That what we want in this country is, hey, this talking head fighting with this talking head. Oh my God, this person destroyed, that person destroyed.
Yeah.
How about a fucking frank discussion of ideas, you retards?
Yeah.
The whole planet is going to shit.
Right.
And all you want to do is fucking hit each other with steel chairs like it's fucking WWE.
Yeah.
I mean,
basically politics.
That's what I'm frustrated with. That's why I don't talk about politics. If you want a more honest answer.
I see. Okay. All right, man. Thank you so much. Do you have any last words to say before we end this off?
I just want to thank you for having me here. And
thank you for
so much, conforming
man.
to my unusual time schedule.
Anytime, man. I just totally appreciate you coming on so much, man. Thank you again, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate it as well.